The cold wind swept through the empty alley as the stray dog limped across the cracked pavement. Her ribs jutted out beneath her thin coat, her once bright eyes dulled by days of hunger and exhaustion. She wasn't alone. Behind her trailed 5 tiny puppies, their small legs struggling to keep up, their cries weak from hunger. The mother dog, whom the locals called Bella, knew she couldn't stop. She had to find food before nightfall, or her babies wouldn't make it another day. The streets weren't kind to dogs like Bella. Humans often shooed her away, muttering angrily when she got too close to their trash bins. Every sniff at a discarded wrapper or overturned can brought nothing but disappointment. Sometimes there was a scrap of stale bread or a soggy piece of meat, but never enough to fill 6 empty stomachs. And now, with her puppies growing weaker, Bella's desperation had reached its peak. A few days ago, Bella had stumbled upon an abandoned building where she'd hidden her newborns in a damp corner to shield them from the world. It wasn't safe, but it was the best she could do. She would leave them there while she searched for food, her heart breaking every time their tiny cries faded behind her. Now, their cries followed her, each whimper a reminder of her failure to provide. As Bella passed the corner of a bustling marketplace, the aroma of roasted chicken and fresh bread hit her nose, making her mouth water. Her paws hesitated. She had been chased away from here before, and the humans would surely not tolerate her presence. But hunger clawed at her insides, and she couldn't afford to be cautious. Her puppies needed her to be brave. She darted toward a pile of discarded food boxes near the back of the market. Her heart pounded as she sniffed through the trash, her nose finding something, a half-eaten sandwich, slightly moldy but edible. Bella grabbed it, her teeth sinking into the bread as she prepared to make her escape. "Hey, get out of here!" a voice shouted. Bella froze, the sandwich still clenched in her jaws. A man in a dirty apron stormed toward her, waving a broom. She dropped the sandwich and darted away, her tail between her legs, her puppies scurrying to hide behind her. "Filthy stray," the man muttered, kicking the sandwich into the gutter as he walked away. Bella watched from the shadows, her heart sinking as the chance for a meal disappeared. She couldn't give up. She couldn't go back to her babies with nothing. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, she found herself near the outskirts of town, where the houses were smaller and the people seemed kinder. Bella approached a small yard where she saw a woman placing a bowl of food on the ground for another dog. The smell of cooked rice and leftover chicken made Bella's legs tremble. She stayed hidden, watching the woman walk back into the house. The other dog, a large Labrador, began eating from the bowl, but Bella couldn't wait. Her puppies were crying softly behind her, their tiny bellies empty for far too long. She moved forward, her body low to the ground, her eyes fixed on the bowl. The Labrador growled when he saw her. Bella froze, her body tense. She wasn't strong enough to fight for the food, but she couldn't back down. Her baby's cries echoed in her ears, pushing her forward. She whimpered softly, trying to show the larger dog she wasn't a threat. To her surprise, the Labrador stepped back, watching her warily but not attacking. Bella crept closer and quickly grabbed a mouthful of rice, swallowing it before grabbing another. She didn't stop until the bowl was empty. Her strength renewed, Bella led her puppies back to the abandoned building, the night air cold against her thin fur. When they reached their corner, she dropped the small scraps she had managed to save in front of her puppies. Their tiny mouths eagerly nibbled at the food, their tails wagging weakly. Bella curled around them, her body shielding them from the cold. For now, they were safe. But as she closed her eyes, her mind raced with the same question it always did. What would tomorrow bring? The next morning, Bella awoke to the soft nuzzles of her puppies, their tiny bodies pressed against hers for warmth. Their bellies, though not full, had stopped aching for a while, and they seemed more energetic than the day before. Bella stretched, her joints stiff from sleeping on the hard, damp floor of the abandoned building. Her eyes darted around the dimly lit corner where she had hidden them, scanning for threats. It wasn't long before their whimpers turned into cries. Hunger had returned, and Bella knew she couldn't delay her search for food, but leaving them alone again terrified her. The world wasn't safe, especially for pups as young as hers. Rats, snakes, or even cruel humans could stumble upon them while she was gone. Yet she had no choice. Bella nudged her puppies gently, licking their heads as if to promise she would be back soon. Their cries tugged at her heart, but she forced herself to turn away and slip out of the building. The streets were still quiet, the town just beginning to wake up. Bella padded down the alleyways, her nose to the ground, searching for any trace of food. A few blocks away, the marketplace from the day before was starting to stir. Bella hesitated. She had already been chased away once, and the thought of returning filled her with dread. But desperation left no room for pride or fear. As Bella approached the market, she kept to the shadows, her thin body blending with the early morning gloom. Vendors were setting up their stalls, arranging fruits, vegetables, and meat. Bella's stomach growled loudly at the sight of a butcher's cart, where scraps of meat were being tossed into a bucket. She crept closer, her movements slow and deliberate. "Go on, get out of here!" Bella froze as another man shouted and threw a rock in her direction. She yelped and scrambled backward, her paws slipping on the slick pavement. Her tail tucked tightly between her legs as she darted back into the safety of the alley. The hunger in her belly turned to a dull ache, joined by the sting of rejection. But Bella wasn't ready to give up. She turned away from the market and wandered farther into town, following her nose in search of something, anything, to eat. After hours of searching, she found herself in a quieter part of the town where small houses lined the streets. She sniffed the air and caught the faint scent of food, leading her to a backyard where another stray had left behind a bone with bits of meat still clinging to it. Bella lunged for it, gnawing at the bone as if it were the best feast she'd ever had. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give her the strength to keep going. She gnawed for as long as she could, then carefully picked up the bone in her mouth. It wasn't just for her. She needed to bring something back for her pups. As Bella turned to leave, the sound of footsteps made her pause. A young boy, no older than 10, was standing a few feet away. He held a piece of bread in his hand, his eyes wide as he stared at Bella. "Hey there," the boy said softly, crouching down. Bella backed away, the bone still in her mouth. She didn't trust humans, not after everything she'd been through. But the boy didn't move closer. Instead, he set the bread on the ground and slowly backed away. "It's okay. You can have it," he said, his voice gentle. Bella hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to run. But the hunger in her belly and the thought of her puppies waiting for her pushed her forward. She inched closer, her eyes locked on the bread. The boy stayed still, watching as she quickly snatched it up and ran. With the bread and the bone clutched tightly in her jaws, Bella made her way back to the abandoned building. Her puppies greeted her with excited yips, their tiny tails wagging as she dropped the food in front of them. They devoured it eagerly, their little bodies pressing against hers as they ate. For the first time in days, Bella felt a glimmer of hope. The boy's kindness had been unexpected, and it reminded her that not all humans were cruel. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for her and her puppies to survive in this unforgiving world. The following days brought a mix of small victories and persistent challenges for Bella and her puppies. The boy who had given her the bread returned to the same spot the next morning, and Bella cautiously approached, keeping her distance at first. He spoke to her in a soothing voice, laying down more food, a piece of boiled chicken this time. Bella hesitated, but eventually took the offering, her trust in him growing slowly but warily. Each time she returned to her puppies with food, they grew stronger. Their tiny eyes began to open, and their legs, once wobbly, found stability as they explored the confines of the abandoned building. Bella felt a flicker of pride watching them play and stumble around. Yet, the worry never left her. She knew that if she didn't find a permanent solution soon, their luck could run out. One cold, rainy evening, Bella ventured out again, leaving the puppies behind as the storm rolled in. She needed to find shelter more secure than the crumbling building they were hiding in. The walls leaked when it rained, and the roof threatened to collapse under the weight of the wind. The boy, whose name she overheard from a neighbor as Sam, had left food for her again, this time under a small tree in his yard to keep it dry. Bella quickly ate her fill and carried a portion back to her pups. As the days passed, a routine developed. Bella would return to Sam's yard early in the morning, and he would always have something waiting for her. But one morning, Sam didn't come out. Bella waited by the fence, her stomach twisting in hunger, but the yard remained empty. She sniffed around, but there was no sign of food. Something was wrong. Sam's house was silent, the curtains drawn. Bella whimpered softly before turning back toward town, disappointment weighing her down. Her search for food led her to a new part of the neighborhood. The streets were quiet, lined with garbage bins that hadn't been collected yet. Bella's heart leaped as she found one overflowing with discarded food. She carefully tipped it over, scattering the contents across the ground. There were scraps of bread, a few bones, and even some leftover pasta. She gathered as much as she could, her mouth full as she turned to head back to her puppies. Suddenly, a loud bark echoed from behind her. Bella spun around to see a large, muscular dog barreling toward her. His teeth bared, his growls filled with menace. He was the kind of dog that ruled the streets, and Bella knew better than to challenge him. She dropped the food and backed away, her tail tucked low. The larger dog lunged at her, snapping at her legs and driving her farther away from the pile of food she had worked so hard to gather. Bella whimpered but didn't fight back. She couldn't risk an injury, not with her puppies depending on her. Defeated and empty-handed, Bella retreated into the shadows, her heart heavy with despair. She couldn't go back to her puppies with nothing. Their cries would pierce through her, reminding her of her failure. As she wandered aimlessly, the rain began to pour again, soaking her thin coat and chilling her to the bone. Her paws dragged across the wet pavement as she searched for even the smallest scrap to bring home. Just as she was about to give up, a familiar voice called out to her. "Hey, girl!" Bella turned to see Sam standing under an umbrella, holding a bag of food in his hand. Relief flooded her as she trotted toward him, her tail wagging ever so slightly. Sam crouched down, his face filled with concern. "Sorry I couldn't come out yesterday," he said softly, opening the bag and pulling out a piece of chicken. Bella ate quickly, her hunger overpowering her usual caution. As she ate, Sam noticed how thin she had become, her ribs protruding sharply against her fur. "You've got puppies, don't you?" he murmured, as if piecing everything together. Bella looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and desperation. "Wait here," Sam said, getting up and disappearing back into his house. Bella waited anxiously, unsure if he would return. Moments later, he came back with a blanket and a large plastic container filled with food. "Take me to them," he said, his voice gentle but firm. Bella hesitated, torn between her instinct to protect her puppies and her growing trust in Sam. After a moment, she turned and began walking toward the abandoned building, glancing back to make sure he was following. When they arrived, Bella led Sam to the corner where her puppies were huddled together, shivering from the cold. Sam's eyes widened as he took in the sight of the frail little pups. "Oh, girl," he said softly, kneeling down. "You've been doing all this for them, haven't you?" Bella watched nervously as Sam unfolded the blanket and placed it on the ground. He carefully picked up the puppies one by one, wrapping them in the warm fabric. Bella let out a low whimper, unsure of what he was doing, but Sam's calm demeanor reassured her. "We can't leave them here," he said, more to himself than to her. "Come on, let's get you all somewhere safe." Bella followed him, her heart pounding as she realized this could be the second chance she'd been praying for. Bella followed Sam cautiously, her eyes darting between him and the bundle of her puppies cradled in the blanket. Each step was heavy with uncertainty, but the trust she'd slowly built with the boy urged her forward. Sam led them down the quiet streets toward his house, the rain still falling in soft drizzles. Bella's fur was soaked, but she didn't care. All that mattered was her pups, now nestled securely in Sam's arms. When they arrived at his small home, Sam opened the door and gestured for Bella to come inside. She hesitated on the threshold, the unfamiliar scent of the house making her nervous. The warmth spilling out from inside, however, was irresistible. After a moment, Bella stepped cautiously onto the tiled floor, her nails clicking softly as she walked. Sam placed the puppies gently in a corner of the living room, where he had already spread out an old towel. "There you go," he said softly, covering them with a blanket to keep them warm. Bella hurried over to her babies, sniffing each one to make sure they were all safe. Their tiny cries turned into soft squeaks of contentment as they nestled against her, comforted by her presence. Sam watched the scene with a faint smile. "You've been through a lot, haven't you, girl?" he said, kneeling down to her level. Bella turned her head toward him, her eyes filled with exhaustion, but also gratitude. She didn't growl or back away, even as he reached out a hand. Slowly, he scratched behind her ear, and to his surprise, her tail gave the slightest wag. "Let me get you some real food," Sam said, standing up and walking toward the kitchen. Bella stayed by her pups, her body curled protectively around them as they slept. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt a flicker of safety. A few minutes later, Sam returned with a bowl of warm food. It was a mix of rice, chicken, and soft vegetables, far better than anything Bella had scavenged in weeks. He placed the bowl in front of her, stepping back to give her space. Bella hesitated, looking from the bowl to Sam, then back to the bowl. Hunger eventually won out, and she began eating, her jaws working quickly to devour the meal. "You're a fighter," Sam said, sitting cross-legged on the floor and watching her. "And you're not alone anymore." The night passed peacefully. Bella and her puppies rested soundly, their stomachs full for the first time in days. Sam had laid out a thick quilt in the corner of the room, creating a makeshift bed for the little family. As Bella watched her puppies sleep, she couldn't help but let out a soft sigh of relief. She didn't know how long this safety would last, but for now, she didn't have to fight the cold streets. The next morning, Sam was up early, rummaging through his small home. Bella watched him curiously as he gathered a few items and stuffed them into a backpack. "I'll be back soon," he said, glancing at her. "Just stay here, okay?" Bella tilted her head, unsure of what he meant, but her instincts told her he wasn't a threat. When he left, she stayed near her puppies, licking them gently and keeping them warm. The house was quiet, the kind of peace Bella had forgotten existed. A few hours later, Sam returned, his arms full of supplies. He had bought a bag of dog food, a few bowls, and even a small basket lined with soft fabric. "This should help," he said, placing everything on the floor. Bella sniffed at the new items curiously, her tail wagging faintly. Over the next few days, Bella began to adjust to her new life. Sam took care of her and the puppies, feeding them regularly and ensuring they stayed warm and comfortable. He even cleaned their corner every day, replacing the towels and blankets with fresh ones. Bella's trust in him grew stronger with each passing moment. One day, as Sam sat on the floor playing with the puppies, Bella walked over and nudged his hand with her nose. It was her way of thanking him. Sam smiled, stroking her head gently. "You're safe now," he said softly. "All of you are." But Sam knew this wasn't a permanent solution. His family wasn't wealthy, and keeping a dog and her 5 puppies wasn't easy. He began making plans to find homes for the puppies once they were old enough. But he also knew he couldn't let Bella go. She had fought too hard and endured too much to end up back on the streets. One evening, Sam sat down with his mother at the kitchen table. Bella watched from the corner, her ears perked as she listened to their conversation. "Mom," Sam began, "we can't just let them go back out there. Bella's been through so much, and those puppies need a chance." His mother sighed, her expression softening as she glanced toward Bella. "I know, Sam. We'll figure something out." Bella didn't understand their words, but she sensed the kindness in their voices. For the first time in her life, she felt like she might belong somewhere. Though the future was still uncertain, she knew she had found something precious in Sam: hope. Days turned into weeks, and Bella's life began to transform in ways she could never have imagined. Her puppies grew stronger with each passing day, their once weak cries turning into playful yips as they began exploring the corners of Sam's small home. They tumbled over each other, biting tails and chasing imaginary foes, blissfully unaware of the struggle their mother had endured to keep them alive. Sam had grown especially attached to the smallest of the litter, a runt with patchy fur and bright, curious eyes. He called her Daisy. "She's just like you, Bella," he'd say as he stroked the pup's head. "A fighter?" Bella would watch him closely, her tail wagging slightly whenever he spoke in that gentle tone. Though the house was filled with warmth and care, challenges loomed over them. Sam's family wasn't wealthy, and the cost of caring for a dog and her 5 puppies was starting to weigh on his mother. The bags of food Sam bought didn't last long, and he often skipped buying small things for himself to make sure Bella and her puppies were fed. One evening, as Bella lay in her corner nursing her puppies, she noticed Sam's mother watching her. There was no anger in her eyes, just worry. Bella tilted her head, sensing the conflict in the woman's heart. She didn't understand the words they spoke, but she understood the tone, quiet, uncertain, and filled with concern. "We can't keep them all, Sam," his mother said softly as she folded a blanket on the couch. "You're doing a good thing, but we need to be realistic. We barely have enough for ourselves." Sam was sitting on the floor, one of the puppies asleep in his lap. His face fell, but he nodded. "I know, Mom," he said quietly, "but I can't just let them go to anyone. I want to make sure they're safe." His mother gave a small smile, placing a hand on his shoulder. "That's all I ask. We'll find good homes for the puppies." "But Bella, she belongs here, doesn't she?" Sam's face lit up, and he glanced toward Bella, who was watching them intently. "Yeah," he said with a smile. "She's part of the family now." Over the next few days, Sam began working on finding homes for the puppies. He spent hours creating posters with pictures of each one, carefully writing descriptions to ensure they would only go to people who would truly care for them. He even reached out to a local shelter for advice, though he refused to leave the puppies there. "I'll take care of it myself," he insisted. Bella watched as strangers came to the house to meet her puppies. She was nervous at first, growling softly whenever anyone got too close, but Sam was always there to reassure her. "It's okay, Bella," he would say, scratching behind her ears. "They're here to help." One by one, the puppies found new homes. Each time Sam handed one over, Bella would sniff the stranger carefully, as if giving her approval. Sam made sure to keep in touch with the families, calling them regularly to check on the pups. It was hard to say goodbye, but he knew it was for the best. By the time all but one puppy had found a home, Bella's anxiety had eased. She seemed to understand that her babies were safe, and she trusted Sam to make the right decisions. The only pup left was Daisy, the run of the litter. Sam hadn't tried to find her a home, and when his mother asked why, he simply said, "She belongs here with Bella." With the house quieter now, Bella and Daisy settled into a routine. They would go on walks with Sam every morning, Daisy bounding ahead while Bella kept a watchful eye on her. Sam's mother had grown fond of Bella too, often sneaking her scraps of meat from the kitchen. "You've got a good heart, girl," she would say, patting Bella's head. But life wasn't without its challenges. One rainy afternoon, as Sam walked Bella and Daisy through the neighborhood, they were confronted by the same large dog that had attacked Bella over the trash pile weeks ago. The dog growled menacingly, his eyes fixed on Daisy, who barked nervously and cowered behind Bella. This time, Bella didn't back down. She stepped forward, her body tense and her teeth bared. She wasn't the weak, starving dog she had been before. She had been through too much, fought too hard, to let anyone hurt her family now. The larger dog lunged, but Bella met him head-on, snapping and barking with a ferocity that took even Sam by surprise. The confrontation was brief. The larger dog, realizing Bella wasn't an easy target, backed off and slinked away into the shadows. Bella stood tall, her chest heaving as she watched him disappear. Sam knelt beside her, his hands shaking as he stroked her fur. "You're amazing," he whispered. "You saved her." That night, as Bella lay curled up with Daisy by her side, she felt something she hadn't known in a long time: peace. The fight for survival was over. She had found a home, a family, and a place where she and her pup could finally rest. Though her journey had been filled with pain and struggle, it had led her here, to safety, love, and hope. And for Bella, that was enough. The weeks that followed cemented Bella and Daisy's place in Sam's home and his heart. Bella had become a different dog entirely. Her once skeletal frame had filled out, her coat now shiny and soft. Her energy had returned, and she no longer walked with the cautious, fearful steps of a stray. Sam had given her a second chance at life, and she took it with quiet dignity. Daisy, on the other hand, was pure chaos. The little runt had grown into a mischievous and lively pup, darting through the house and causing trouble wherever she went. She chewed on Sam's shoes, knocked over flower pots, and once even stole a loaf of bread from the kitchen counter. Bella was patient with her daughter, often nudging her gently with her nose or pulling her back by the scruff of her neck when she got too wild. Sam adored Daisy's antics, even if they made his life a little harder. "You've got your mom's spirit, don't you?" he would say, laughing as Daisy skidded across the floor chasing a ball. One sunny afternoon, Sam decided it was time for a family outing. He had found a park nearby with open fields and plenty of space for Bella and Daisy to run. As they arrived, Bella's ears perked up. The scent of fresh grass and the sound of children laughing filled the air. It was a world away from the harsh streets she had once known. Sam let Daisy off her leash, and the pup took off like a rocket, her little legs carrying her in dizzying circles. Bella stayed close to Sam, her watchful eyes never leaving Daisy. Sam sat on a bench, tossing a ball for Daisy to chase while Bella lay at his feet, her head resting on her paws. It was the kind of peace Bella had only dreamed of. But as the afternoon wore on, Bella's instincts kicked in. Her ears twitched, her nose lifted to the air. She caught the faint scent of another dog, an unfamiliar one. Her body stiffened, her protective nature surfacing immediately. She rose to her feet, scanning the park for the source of the scent. Near the edge of the park, a man was walking a dog on a leash, a large, muscular animal with a scar running down its face. Bella recognized him instantly. It was the same dog that had attacked her over the trash pile. Her fur bristled, and a low growl rumbled in her throat. Sam noticed the change in her demeanor. "What's wrong, girl?" he asked, following her gaze. When he saw the other dog, his face hardened. "It's him, isn't it?" he murmured, remembering the story of Bella's fight to protect her pups. Daisy, unaware of the tension, bounded toward the larger dog, her tail wagging playfully. Bella barked sharply, a warning that froze Daisy in her tracks. The larger dog growled, but his owner tugged on the leash, pulling him back. Bella stood firm, her body between Daisy and the threat, her eyes never leaving the other dog. The man holding the leash noticed Bella and frowned. "Hey, isn't that the stray from the alley?" he called out to Sam. Sam stood, his voice calm but firm. "She's not a stray anymore." The man smirked. "Looks like she's still got some fight in her. Better keep her on a leash, or she'll get hurt." Sam clenched his fists, but before he could respond, Bella let out a deep, guttural bark that silenced the man. Her stance was strong, her eyes filled with determination. She wasn't just defending herself this time, she was defending her family. The man muttered something under his breath and turned away, dragging his dog with him. Bella watched until they disappeared from sight, then relaxed, her body visibly easing. Sam knelt beside her, stroking her head. "You're amazing," he said softly. "You're not just a fighter. You're a protector." Daisy trotted back to Bella, nuzzling against her side. Bella licked the top of her pup's head, her way of reassuring her that everything was okay. As the sun began to set, Sam gathered their things and led Bella and Daisy back home. The walk was peaceful, the golden light casting long shadows on the pavement. Bella walked proudly beside Sam, her head held high, while Daisy bounced happily at her side. That night, as Bella lay in her corner of the living room with Daisy curled against her, she thought about how far they had come. The hunger, the fear, the struggle, it all felt like a distant memory. Here, in this warm home with Sam, she had found something she never thought possible, a future. Bella's eyes drifted closed, her body finally at ease. No longer a stray, no longer fighting to survive, she was home. And for Bella, that was everything. As the months passed, Bella and Daisy continued to thrive in their new home. Bella had transformed completely. Her once frail body was now strong and healthy, and her coat shone with vitality. Daisy grew into a playful, spirited young dog, full of boundless energy that often left Sam and his mother laughing in exasperation. The bond between Sam and Bella deepened every day. Bella had become more than just a dog to him. She was a symbol of resilience, a reminder that even in the face of despair, hope could prevail. Every morning, she would sit by the door, waiting for Sam to wake up so they could go for their walk. And every evening, she would lie by his feet as he worked on his school assignments or read books. Sam's mother, too, had grown fond of Bella. She had been hesitant at first, worried about the strain on their family, but Bella's gentle nature and loyalty had won her over. "She's a blessing," she often told Sam, scratching Bella's head as Bella leaned into her touch. Daisy, meanwhile, had become the heart of the household. Her antics brought endless joy, even if they also brought a fair share of chaos. She once managed to knock over a bag of flour in the kitchen, leaving a trail of white paw prints across the house. Sam had spent an hour cleaning it up while Daisy sat nearby, wagging her tail as if she were proud of her accomplishment. But even in this newfound peace, Bella's instincts as a protector never wavered. One chilly evening, as the family sat around the living room, Bella suddenly lifted her head, her ears perked. She let out a low growl, her eyes fixed on the front door. "What is it, girl?" Sam asked, sitting up. Before he could move, there was a loud knock at the door. Sam's mother frowned, glancing at the clock. It was late, and they weren't expecting anyone. Bella stood, her body tense, and positioned herself between the door and Daisy, who was now peeking out from behind the couch. Sam approached the door cautiously and opened it slightly. Standing on the porch was a man with a disheveled appearance, his clothes worn and his face shadowed by the dim porch light. "Can I help you?" Sam asked, his voice wary. "I'm looking for my dog," the man said, his tone gruff. "He's gone missing, and someone told me you might have taken him in." Sam frowned. "We don't have your dog. The only dogs here are mine." The man's eyes narrowed. "You sure about that? I heard you got a stray and her pups. Maybe one of them is mine." Bella let out a deep, threatening bark, stepping closer to the door. The man flinched, but his expression hardened. "Keep your dog quiet," he snapped. Sam's mother appeared behind him, her voice firm. "We don't have your dog. You need to leave." The man glared at them for a moment longer before turning and walking away, muttering under his breath. Sam closed the door and locked it, his heart pounding. Bella stayed by the door, her ears still perked and her body alert. "Do you think he'll come back?" Sam asked his mother, worry etched across his face. "I don't know," she admitted, glancing at Bella. "But if he does, I have a feeling she won't let anything happen to us." That night, Bella stayed by the door, refusing to relax until she was certain the house was safe. Her loyalty was unwavering, and Sam felt a deep gratitude for her presence. Over the next few days, Sam kept a close eye on the neighborhood, but there was no sign of the man. Life gradually returned to normal, and the family fell back into their routine. Bella and Daisy continued to bring light and love into their home, and Sam found himself wondering how they had ever lived without them. One crisp autumn afternoon, Sam decided to take Bella and Daisy on a longer walk than usual. They ventured out to a nearby field, where the leaves had turned brilliant shades of orange and gold. Daisy bounded through the grass, her tail wagging furiously as she chased leaves carried by the wind. Bella stayed close to Sam, her eyes scanning the horizon with quiet vigilance. As they walked, Sam thought about everything that had happened since Bella had first appeared in his yard. He remembered the way she had looked that day, thin, scared, and desperate. And now, she was strong, confident, and full of life. "You saved us as much as we saved you," he said softly, scratching behind Bella's ears. Bella looked up at him, her eyes filled with the quiet understanding that only a dog could have. In that moment, Sam realized just how much she meant to him. Bella wasn't just a stray he had taken in. She was family. As the sun began to set, casting a warm, golden glow over the field, Bella and Daisy played together in the fading light. Sam watched them, his heart full. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had led them here, to love, safety, and a future full of hope. And for Bella, there was no greater reward than that. Winter arrived quietly, draping the town in a soft blanket of frost. The chill in the air brought shorter days and longer nights, but inside Sam's small home, there was warmth and love. Bella and Daisy had truly become part of the family. Bella spent her days lounging by the fireplace, her once weary eyes now bright and peaceful. Daisy, as energetic as ever, found endless joy chasing her reflection in the glass windows or playing tug-of-war with one of Sam's old socks. Sam's mother, who had initially worried about the added responsibility, had grown deeply attached to Bella. Every morning, she would sit at the kitchen table, sipping tea while Bella rested her head on her lap. "You're such a good girl," she would whisper, stroking Bella's soft fur. Bella responded by wagging her tail gently, a silent promise of her loyalty. But with winter's arrival came new challenges. The man who had knocked on their door weeks earlier hadn't returned, but his presence lingered in Sam's mind like a shadow. He couldn't shake the unease it brought, especially when he was out walking Bella and Daisy. Every time he saw a stranger on the street, he found himself pulling Daisy closer, his heart racing at the thought of anyone trying to take her, or Bella, away. One evening, as a heavy snowstorm blanketed the streets, Sam sat in the living room with Bella curled up beside him. Daisy was fast asleep near the fireplace, her small body rising and falling with each peaceful breath. Sam's mother was in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared a pot of soup. The tranquility was shattered by a sudden, sharp knock at the door. Bella's head shot up, her ears pricked. She let out a low growl, her body tense as she rose to her feet. Sam's stomach tightened. It was rare for anyone to visit them, especially during such bad weather. "I'll get it," Sam's mother said, wiping her hands on a towel. But Sam stood up, shaking his head. "No, Mom. I'll handle it." He walked to the door, Bella at his side. Her growls grew louder as the knocking repeated, more insistent this time. Sam opened the door just a crack, and his heart sank. Standing there, shivering in the snow, was the man from before, the one who had claimed he was looking for his dog. "You again?" Sam said, his voice tight. The man's eyes darted past Sam and into the house, as if searching for something. "I know you've got her," he said, his voice slurred. The smell of alcohol wafted from him, making Sam's stomach churn. "That dog's mine, the one with the pup. You stole Em from me." "She's not yours," Sam replied, his voice firm. "Bella was a stray. She had no one, and Daisy was born here. They're my dogs now." The man stepped closer, his expression darkening. "I'll take what's mine, kid. You think you can just keep him?" "Strays don't belong to anyone." Bella barked sharply, stepping between Sam and the man. Her fur bristled, and her growl was deep and threatening. Daisy woke up at the noise, letting out a frightened yip and scurrying toward Bella. Sam's mother appeared behind him, her face pale but determined. "You need to leave," she said firmly. "Now, or I'm calling the police." The man hesitated, his eyes narrowing. For a moment, it seemed like he might push past them, but Bella's growls grew louder, her body rigid with fury. It was clear she would fight to protect her family, and the man finally took a step back. "You haven't seen the last of me," he muttered, turning and disappearing into the snow. Sam closed the door and locked it, his hands shaking. Bella stayed by his side, her eyes fixed on the door, as if she expected the man to return at any moment. "We need to do something," Sam said, his voice trembling. "What if he comes back? What if he tries to hurt them?" His mother placed a hand on his shoulder. "We'll protect them, Sam. Together. Bella's strong, and so are you." That night, Bella refused to leave the front door, her body coiled like a spring. Sam stayed up with her, stroking her fur and whispering reassurances. "You're safe now," he said softly, though he wasn't sure if he was saying it for her or himself. The next morning, Sam made a decision. He reached out to a local animal rescue group, explaining the situation and asking for advice. The woman he spoke to, a kind and empathetic volunteer named Grace, offered to help. "We can document Bella and Daisy's presence in your home," she said. "It won't stop someone from making a false claim, but it'll make it much harder for anyone to take them from you. And if the man comes back, call the authorities immediately." Over the next few days, Grace visited the house, taking photos of Bella and Daisy and noting their condition. She even offered to help Bella get officially registered, giving Sam and his mother peace of mind. Though the fear of the man's return lingered, Sam felt a growing sense of hope. Bella and Daisy were no longer just stray dogs. They were part of a family that would fight to protect them, no matter what. As the days passed, Bella began to relax again. She spent her mornings by the window, watching the snow fall, and her evenings curled up by Sam's side. Daisy, ever playful, brought laughter and joy to the house, her antics a constant reminder of the life they had built together. The storm that had once defined Bella's life, of hunger, fear, and uncertainty, had finally passed. Now, she stood tall as a survivor, a protector, and above all, a beloved member of her family. Bella's journey from a desperate, starving stray to a cherished member of Sam's family was nothing short of miraculous. Her resilience and determination had not only saved her own life, but also the lives of her puppies, especially Daisy, who had become a symbol of hope and new beginnings. As winter deepened, the bond between Bella, Daisy, Sam, and his mother grew even stronger. The man who had threatened them never returned, and the family began to feel a sense of security again. Bella, once a wary and cautious stray, now wagged her tail freely and greeted each day with a quiet confidence. Daisy, full of boundless energy, continued to bring laughter and light to the household, her playful antics a constant reminder of the joy they had found together. One crisp morning, as the first rays of sunlight broke through the frost-covered windows, Sam decided it was time to take Bella and Daisy on a special outing. He had heard about a nearby nature reserve where dogs were allowed to roam freely, and he thought it would be the perfect place for Bella to experience the world without fear. Daisy, of course, was thrilled at the prospect of a new adventure. As they arrived at the reserve, Bella's ears perked up at the unfamiliar scents and sounds. The wide-open fields and towering trees were a stark contrast to the narrow alleyways and bustling streets she had once called home. Daisy bounded ahead, her nose to the ground as she explored every inch of the new terrain. Bella stayed close to Sam, her eyes scanning the horizon with quiet curiosity. Sam watched as Bella tentatively stepped onto the soft grass, her paws sinking slightly into the earth. For a moment, she hesitated, as if unsure of how to navigate this unfamiliar world. But then, with a deep breath, she took a few cautious steps forward, her tail wagging ever so slightly. Sam smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "Go on, girl," he said softly. "You're safe here." Encouraged by his words, Bella began to explore. She sniffed at the base of trees, her nose twitching at the scent of wildflowers and damp earth. Daisy, ever the adventurer, darted ahead, chasing after a butterfly that flitted just out of reach. Bella kept a watchful eye on her pup, her protective instincts never far from the surface. As they walked deeper into the reserve, Sam noticed a small stream winding its way through the trees. The water sparkled in the sunlight, and the sound of it bubbling over rocks was soothing. Daisy, drawn to the water, trotted over and dipped her paws in, letting out a happy bark as the cool water splashed around her. Bella followed, her movements more deliberate. She stood at the edge of the stream, staring at her reflection in the water. Sam knelt beside her, running a hand over her back. "You've come so far, Bella," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "You're not that scared, hungry dog anymore. You're strong. You're loved." Bella looked up at him, her eyes soft and full of gratitude. She leaned into his touch, her tail wagging gently. For a moment, it was as if she understood every word he said. The rest of the day was spent in peaceful exploration. Bella and Daisy ran through the fields, their barks echoing in the crisp winter air. Sam watched them, his heart full. He couldn't help but think about how different their lives had been just a few months ago. Bella had been fighting for survival, and now she was free to simply be a dog, to run, to play, to rest without fear. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the reserve, Sam called Bella and Daisy back to him. They trotted over, their tongues lolling and their eyes bright with happiness. Sam knelt down, wrapping his arms around them both. "You're my family," he whispered, "and I'll never let anything happen to you." The walk back to the car was quiet. The only sounds the crunch of snow beneath their feet and the occasional chirp of a bird. Bella walked beside Sam, her head held high, while Daisy bounded ahead, her energy seemingly endless. When they arrived home, Sam's mother greeted them with a warm smile and a pot of soup simmering on the stove. That night, as Bella lay curled up by the fireplace with Daisy nestled against her, she felt a deep sense of contentment. The struggles of her past were behind her, and the future was bright. She had found a home, a family, and a love that would never waver. And as she closed her eyes, her body warm and her heart full, Bella knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be.